Racecourse is the most beautiful racetrack in America, hands down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the breeding stock sale. Book one. Good to have you back with us.
And a pleasant Tuesday night, everybody who's ready for week 3 of the Keeneland Fall Meet. We are at the halfway point of the 2022 fall season, and Fall Stars weekends in our rearview mirror, the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup in our rearview mirror, but still plenty of stakes action to go. News towards the Breeders' Cup, of course, at Keeneland coming up November 4th and 5th. It's not part of the fall meet. It's kind of the cherry on top after the meet is over. So just a lot of great racing still left to go in Lexington this week and for next week as well. Week 3 looks great on the 5-day forecast. Was checking out WLKY earlier, and there's no rain in sight for the next 5 days. I think we're going to get fast tracks and great turf courses, good to firm even perhaps for the turf over the course of the next several days. Watch, I probably jinxed it by telling Mother Nature that the weather forecast looks good for several days in a row. But for tomorrow, at least, we know it's going to look good. Sunny, 55 degrees. It's going to feel like fall, but it's going to be a great crisp day out there to get out to Keeneland. If you're in the local area, make sure you get out to the races. And if you're following along at home and playing with your favorite ADW, we're glad that you're with us tonight as we preview the next day's racing card here on the Keeneland Look Ahead each night of the racing meet. So Tuesday through Saturday this week, we will have previews 8:30 Eastern for those each night. Now, we're going to review a little bit before we get into the 8-race Wednesday card, which kicks off at 1 o'clock Eastern. We're going to review a bit of what we've seen so far at the meet, give you a little bit of a handicapping update and what we can expect perhaps moving forward here as week number 3 kicks off. But if you've been following along, you know that the racing has been really fair on the tote. It has not been laden by favorites. Favorites have won 36% at the meet, 28 for 78. National average for favorites, 38%. So a tick below that. Very fair racing in that respect. The Churchill shippers have done the best. The horses who have last raced at Churchill Downs, they have the volume for sure, but they're also doing very well throughout a lot of the different divisions and races. And we'll talk about that when we get to each individual. But 29 winners at the meet so far in 78 races. Last race at Churchill Downs. So that's more than a third of the winners coming from Churchill. No other circuits produce more than 11 where Saratoga can claim, and then 9 from Kentucky Downs. A little bit of a quiet season for the Kentucky Downs runners so far, but that's not completely out of the norm for the Keeneland Fall Meet. And given the time on the calendar and how races get a little more blue collar as we get into weeks 3 and 4, some of those Kentucky Downs horses who were maybe overmatched for the big purses there are going to fit nicely here over the last 2 weeks of the meet. And typically when you're gambling on the Kentucky Downs horses at Keeneland, they do a little bit better on the main track than they do the turf. It doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense, but the statistics bear it out, and you get a better ROI betting the Kentucky Downs horses on the dirt than you do on the turf at Keeneland in the fall meet. So we'll see how that turns out. Sire Into Mischief just keeps rolling along. He's got 6 winners already at the meet. There's only been 78 races, 6 winners from Into Mischief. Buy Into Mischief, of course, the sire. It's buy a sire and you're out of a dam if you're trying to speak pedigree lingo and you want to sound like you've got it down right. The sire is buy. You're buy Into Mischief, and the mare you would be out of. But 6 winners by Into Mischief at this meet, 4 of them on the dirt, 2 on the turf. They're winning on any surface, doing really well. Todd Pletcher, Graham Motion, the 2 trainers to talk about. Pletcher's got 7 wins. He's got 3 grade 1s at the meet. His horses are all firing from limited starters. His 7 wins top the standings. Graham Motion's got 4. He's not going to be in contention for any training titles because he just doesn't have the volume. But Graham Motion's horses are running. And so those are 2 trainers, Pletcher and Motion. that you want to keep following, I think, over the next 2 weeks for sure. And as far as the jockeys go, Tyler Gaffleon's got 8. Luis Saez is up near the top. We expect that. But John Velasquez was 6 wins. And again, he's not riding the card like he would have in New York, say 10, 15 years ago. So more select with his mounts, but 6 wins at the meet for Johnny V. He is riding really well. So of the connections to keep an eye on that are performing above standard, Pletcher and Motion for the trainers, John Velasquez amongst the jockeys. Those are the folks I think you want to keep your eye on as we get to week 3 and then into week 4. As far as the handicapping's gone on these podcasts and with our picks at the Handicappers Consensus page at Keeneland.com, the roll continues. I expect the law of averages to turn back at some point, but I'm not going to dismiss it. 29 for 78 with my top picks at the meet so far, 37% winners. It's netted $234.28 in win returns. That's $78.28 profit. So for every $2 you bet, you got $3 back so far on every top pick at the meet. I don't know if we can keep that kind of pace up, but we had an incredible spring meet where the ROI turned out to be $2.88 at the end of the meet, making 88 cents profit on every $2 bet. So combined, looking at, the 16 days of the spring, the first, what do we have so far on this meet? 8 days of this meet. We're on like a 24-day run here. The last 6 days have all been profitable in terms of if you bet every horse on top ROI. So we'll look to continue that streak. We barely eked out a small profit with the winners, the 3 winners that we put out on Sunday. But, earlier in the week, 5 winners on top Thursday, 7 winners on top Friday, 5 on top Saturday, 17 winners in 3 days. It was quite a roll. I don't know if we can keep that up, but I can tell you, as we get into handicapping this week's card, I haven't done a whole lot different. And, maybe looking for a little more of the blue collar horses here now as we get into a lot more maiden claiming races. Where you're not looking maybe so much as like pedigrees and trainer intent and things like that, where you're looking for more nuts and bolts. How does the horse match up with others? How does the pace scenario set up? Does this race look like it sets up for speed or closers? When you get into blue collar stuff, maybe you get into that a little bit more. I do know trainer Mike Tomlinson always turns it up here 3rd week of the Keeneland fall meet. So I'm going to look for Mike Tomlinson trainees this week. And I think we've got some, here on the opening couple cards that I've handicapped already. I've already looked at Wednesday and Thursday. I haven't gotten into Friday quite yet. That's work for after this podcast tonight. We'll start to look at Friday's card. That's just kind of the way the work schedule sets up here this time of year. Let's get into the handicapping. Enough about me. Let's talk about tomorrow's card, as an 8-race program is featured tomorrow at Keeneland. Again, first post 1 o'clock. With these 8-race cards, folks, again, there are only 8 races, so only 1 on turf in race 8 and 1 on turf in race 5. So there's no Keeneland turf pick 3. But what we get is the pick 5, and almost every race a new sequence starts up in the multi-race wagers because of the 8-race condensed schedule. But we don't shorten the wager format. So there's an early pick 5 and a late pick 5. There's an early pick 4 and a late pick 4. And when you look at where these races start, race 1 starts to pick 5, race 2 starts to pick 4, pick 6 begins in race 3, no carryover for that as we start the new race week. Now, race number 4 starts at pick 5, and I say swing there, and I say swing in race number 5. The swing mean you should be taking a swing at the races? Well, not directly, but indirectly, sure. When I say a swing race, I mean they're part of both early and late sequences, kind of like a swing state, can go both ways. That's what I'm talking about, the swing races. Races 4 and 5 are swing races here on an 8-race card, meaning race 4 is part of the early pick 5 and the late pick 5, and race 5 is also part of both of those sequences. And when you look at the strategy of setting up your pick 4 tickets even, race number 5 is part of the pick 4 early and late. So race number 5's everything on these kind of cards. If you can come up with an opinion you like in race number 5, it certainly comes to your benefit. You want to try to hone in on races 4 and 5 for sure, playing the multi-race wagers. Then my key plays at the bottom. I think this card's kind of a little bit chalky, but at the same time, not super trustworthy horses early in the card, but I'm kind of defaulted to horses that are logically low prices. I think my best chance to get a price on the entire program is race number 3. So we're going to try to take advantage of that. We'll tell you which horse we're looking for in the 3rd race and why when we get to each race handicapping. 4 and 5, I tell you, are the 2 races for the swing that you got to kind of really get honed in on. If you like both of them, great. If you like neither of them, you're in kind of a tough spot to play the multi-race wagers on a day like this. But if you like one of the two, you might come out firing. And so I think I like race 5 a little bit more than I do race number 4. So look, does that put me on the late pick 4 versus, an early or something like that? We'll see. But certainly with the swing race being the 5th, it can go early, it can go late. We'll talk about all the potential contenders as we go through the card. And then the finale, look, I don't think there's a lot of big prices in the 6th and 7th. So we might lull ourselves to sleep a little bit with some shorter prices late in the day. I've got a third choice in the morning line that I've got on top in the finale. And that might be my best price or best chance for a moderate price later in the day. Again, when you handicap ahead, you look at the morning line. And then I'm going to show you the handicapper selectors box from Keeneland.com. It's going to give you a good sense of like what kind of prices you may expect in particular races on the card. And if there's a series of races 2, 3, 4 in a row where the horses you're coming up with are just, look like they're going to be shorter prices, then you need to get creative with the multi-race wagers or stack your bets where if your bankroll is, say, $50 for the day, look, there's only 2 plays that I really like today that are going to go off at a price, $25 on each. I mean, it's not great for churn. It's not great for what the track may want of that money keep coming in every race. But my job is to help you become a better. And I hope that, you put your best amounts on your best opinions. Your strongest amounts should go on your best opinions. And let's see how it plays out on this card, shall we? Let's get handicapping. Race number 1 on this 8-race program for Wednesday. Again, first post 1 o'clock. It's going to kick off the early pick 5. And here's the handicapper selectors box. You can print this out yourself at Keeneland.com. The handicapper's consensus there. Scott Hazelton, Tom Leach, myself, Gabby Gaudette, Kim Nelson, been doing it for years together. The 5 of us here are looking at Heir to Greatness as the horse to beat in race number 1. In most cases, I've got Order of Merit on top. Order of Merit, a second choice, third choice for many of the others. Look, this is a maiden claiming $20,000 race. Drop to the bottom level of maiden claimers and going 1 mile and an eighth. Nobody wants to be in these kind of races is what I like to say. Maiden claiming routes are where slow horses go to find other slow horses. It's just the unfortunate reality of it. They're not fast enough to win in sprints, which are the majority of maiden races, and they're not good enough to take on the maiden specials anymore. Most of them have tried it and now are dropping to find, slower and more friendly foes to run against. So there's not a lot in this opening race that I really feel is embraceable. You've got a couple big class droppers, and it's just a matter of which one gets over the top and finds the right field. Order of Merit's the one I went for because Todd Pletcher's had, such a good meet here at Keeneland. And in the past, when he's dropped maiden specials to maiden claimers at Keeneland, he is just like a punch out. At one point, he was 5 for 6. And so I think he might have had 1 or 2 runs since then. But at worst, Pletcher's like 5 for 8 at Keeneland, dropping maiden specials to maiden claiming. He doesn't do it very often during these meets. And Order of Merit, I went with that one. I'm not wild about post number 10 in a 2-turn race. But at 1 mile and an eighth, you get a longer run to the first turn than you do at 1 mile and a 16th. So maybe Luis Saez can find a little bit better position. Order of Merit, the top pick in here for me. Heir to Greatness is the top pick for all the other public handicappers in here. And you'll see I've got Heir to Greatness picked third. I don't have any argument with that. It's really the same scenario. It's a maiden special weight drop, taking a big drop off the board. This one's run on the turf 2 of the last 3. Ran at Churchill okay in the debut when running 5th on the dirt. Alstal Jr. got off to a really quick start at the meet, winning 3 races opening weekend. He was blanked last week, but he didn't have a ton of starters. It's not like he's on some kind of cold streak, but are all the Alstals firing? Maybe not like we thought at the beginning of the meet, but this one does seem to be well placed. There would be no argument with Heir to Greatness winning this one. Tyler Gaffleone, top jock at the meet so far, I believe, with 8 winners, has the call. The other one to consider is Aristocrat, but Aristocrat simply runs underneath a lot, 14 career starts, 6 in the money finishes, but none of those were wins. Hasn't been able to carry the speed all the way at Prairie Meadows, a track that usually carries speed as well as any in America. But I do expect Aristocrat to go to the front in here. I think Aristocrat's faster than the 1 and the 2, so you're going to get an inside trip under Kylie Jordan, who's ridden really well out in Iowa this year. So Aristocrat goes to the front, and then I think either Heir to Greatness or Order of Merit, the classy maiden specials for the big barn. One of those 2 probably nails in the win. I wouldn't bet Aristocrat on top in this particular spot. I think if you're playing the pick 4, the opening pick 5, I should say, I would use both the 10 and the 4, and I'm going to try to get by. If I can't win a 20,000 maiden claimer at Keeneland with Alstall and Todd Pletcher, then so be it. I kind of think you almost just, too deep in here. I don't trust either one of them enough to single. Aristocat, I think, is going to take them a long way, but find somebody better. If you want to make the argument that you go 3 deep in here and keep Aristocat, okay. I mean, that's your choice. But I don't think it's enough to bring the ticket from a 2-buy to a 3-buy now and increase the cost of the ticket that much. So I'm just going to use the 2 logical horses in here. Like I said, I think the prices are going to be fairly short the first couple of races on the card here before maybe a price chance. So it's a default pick. I'm not wild about either one of them, but I don't see both of them losing a maiden claiming 20 at a mile and 1/8. Usually over a longer distance, the class will eventually win out. And so at a mile and 1/8, I'll take the class horses in here for Pletcher and for Alstall. Let's go to race number 2 on the card and check across the way. While there is a consensus with 4 top picks on the same horse, Heir to Greatness, in the opener, look at race number 2, fans. The 1's got to pick on top. The 4's got to pick. The 6, the 8, the 9. 5 handicappers, 5 different top picks in race number 2. I ended up with the morning line favorite, and I'm the only one on the favorite. I think Tyrone, the 1, is 3-1 in the morning line. This is another one. Look, we've got maiden claimers here. It's only a 7 furlong sprint, not the mile and 1/8, but the class drop here, blinkers on with the rail. A little bit of trouble at the start last time for Tyrona. So, get away clean. You get Tyler Gaffleone. There's a connection between Gaffleone and Gustavo Delgado, of course, with, as long as they've been together down in South Florida. So I don't think it's like, hey, they got Tyler Gaffleone. This is like a really big deal. The leading jockey's taking them out on this one. He didn't ride first call for Delgado in South Florida, but he's a Gulfstream jockey with a Gulfstream trainer. It makes some sense that, if they had an open call in this race, that Gaffleone may take it. So I've got Tyrona on top. Again, not a wildly popular confidence play here for me, but I just don't like anything else. I mean, I'll just be blunt. There's not much else in here. I think the maiden special to the maiden 30 drop is good enough. Tyrona on the inside with the blinkers on, I think, will break and go from the rail. We'll see how far they go. The 8 Sweet Truffles definitely deserves a look in here. We have seen the veteran sire Candy Ride, sire 3 winners already at the meet. 4 years, he was the top sire at Keeneland, and he's not producing new horses anymore, Candy Ride, but his pedigree line is still running very well over this track. Sweet Truffles has had a lot of nibbles at it. 3 straight third-place finishes for Kenny McPeak. 4 of 7 lifetime finishing third, but this could just be the right company. It's a turn back from a mile and a 16th. I kind of prefer the sprinters in these races to the turn back horses, the 2-turn horses turning back to 7/8 of a mile. But I'll take Candy Ride. Kenny McPeak's barn's doing fairly well. He's had a lot of starters. He's won some races, but he's had a lot of starters to do it. But they're not running poorly, but they're not running through, a high percentage either. But McPeak's barn, wins these kind of races. Maiden claimers, the veteran types who've had some starts under the belt. So the 8 Sweet Truffles certainly could be a factor in here. And the other one I thought that had a chance to hit the board is 15-1 in the morning line, Backstreet Affair. This one was, from Southern California. Owner Bob Bowen moved this one east and gave it to Greg Foley. The rider fell off last time. Draw a line through that race, but was bet live at Churchill Downs last time. I don't think we're going to get 15-1 with Florent Giroux riding. I think this horse will get bet a little bit more than that, but Backstreet Affairs, fairly attractive, at least in the morning line. I'm not wild about this race again. So with 5 different handicappers taking 5 different horses on top, this looks like a spread race, perhaps in the early pick 4, which starts here in race number 2, and certainly a spread race in the pick 5. If we go too deep in the opener, maybe we use all 3 of my top 3 choices in here in race number 2. And if you want to go deeper than that, certainly the public handicappers make the case that you can do that. Ugrata, the 4's got top pick for one of the handicappers. Save Grace is the top pick. Fout's a top pick. Spread your wings. Get your money's worth in race number 2. And if you can't narrow in other places, look, if you get a race like this where you say, I just don't like anybody, it's going to cost too much. If you can narrow in other spots, it's still okay to look at the pick 4s and pick 5s. If you can't narrow in other spots, though, now you're like, oh, I'm 5 deep here, 5 deep there. Then those are the tickets to get out of and say, look, I'm just going to play the late pick 4, late pick 5 today and not the early, because I simply don't have an opinion on it. Now, one race I do have an opinion on, it's one of my key plays, certainly early in the day, the key play, and maybe the key play on the entire card. Comes up here in race number 3, 12-1 in the morning line. Again, I've got some maiden claiming favorites in races 1 and 2, and I'm not even really wild about them, but I don't like any of the long shot type horses that much either that are going against them, so they're almost default picks. But in race number 3, I've got one I like here, and it's Tipsy Gal. And if you look across the running line, I'm on the island with Tipsy Gal. Not a single mention by anybody else of the 2 Tipsy Gal in this race, and I'll take it. That's what I like to see. No offense to my fellow public handicappers, but if they're not seeing what I'm seeing, that means I'm going to get a price, and that's what I like to see. 12-1 in the morning line on Tipsy Gal. Now, this is a class dropper for Dallas Stewart, who was a winner over the track. I love horses that have run well here at Keeneland in the past. The recent form soils things, 5th, 6th, 5th in the last 3, beaten 10 or more lengths in 3 of those 4 starts. So the current form is why the horse is 12-1. But the reason I want it, and the fact that the 12-1 is still there popping, is because of that past form. And because when Brian Hernandez rides this horse, he just seems to get more out of the mare Tipsy Gal. If you go back to the win at Fairgrounds, it was when Brian Hernandez replaced Sean Bridgman. You look at the win at Keeneland, it was Brian Hernandez replacing Colby Hernandez. Now, Brian rode this horse last time out. First start off a little bit of a layoff, June to September. And now, I think this horse has got maybe just enough speed. There's not a lot of time to get into a race at 5.5 furlongs. So he's going to have to hustle. She's never been one to go right to the front. But I don't think the 1 on the inside has a lot of early pace. I don't think the 3's super fast. 3's got a little bit of pace. The real speed probably comes from the 4 and then maybe out to the 6. So, if the 2 can break well, he might be able to secure the fence. And Brian Hernandez, an excellent rider, having himself a decent meet. Again, he's riding some of the McPeak horses. He's not riding at a huge percentage, but a decent meet for Hernandez. I'd look for Tipsy Gal to break well, maybe second, but securing the inside, third, securing the inside at 5.5, and come off the turn with a chance to punch home, just like she did over 7 furlongs here in the October meet last year when she sat third and just gradually wore them down. That was 7 furlongs. She's going to have to get in gear. But that was also 7 furlongs against allowance optional claiming types. These are $32,000 claimers. So it's Tipsy Gal for me in race number 3, the key play of the day. Certainly in the first half of the card, and I think really on the entire program. If you look across, Sister Annie, Lady Gold Start, Magical Peapod, also get top picks in here from the handicappers. Magical Peapod's one I've got picked in second, a nice price at 12-1. So 12-1 over 12-1, my top 2 in here. Beachside Bunny's also a decent price. If we can get this one in, it's a win play on Tipsy Gal, and it's exact key box, 2 with the 8-9. If we get 2 of these 3 in, we get all the candy. If we just get the 1 in, we get plenty of candy. Get set for trick or treat with this one at 12-1 in the morning line. Now we go to race number 4 on the card, and race number 4 is, one of these swing races that you're going to have to consider in the pick 5 early and the pick 5 late. The late pick 5 starts here in race number 4. The public handicappers were in fairly sharp agreement here with Zap Motion. I'm on this horse as well, and I didn't have as much confidence maybe as the box tells me I should. Scott's got Zap Motion. Tom's got Zap Motion. Kim's got Zap Motion. Gabby went with Oro de Moro Moro, but has Zap Motion third. So clearly the 9's going to be pretty well backed and solid favorite in here. 5-2 in the morning line. The reason I went to the 9 is because the horse won the maiden special at Fairgrounds. And so in a non-winners of 2 claimer like this, who has the best win? Non-winners of 2 lifetime means you have 1 and only 1 win. That Fairgrounds maiden special weight looks awfully good on paper from, March of last year. So I think that you're looking at a horse, Zap Motion, who's probably going to outclass these. Running back second time at the meet, has already started once and showed some speed in the allowance ranks. The question is why are you dropping all the way to 20,000, right? You got to be a little bit suspicious of this. This is a Go Sapper colt for Panic Stable. I guess appropriately named at Panic Stable after a poor effort in allowance company is going to go all the way from the $110,000 allowance ranks down to the $20,009 They don't mind parting ways with this horse, so let's see what turns out. Prior to that last start, this horse would be 1-5 on paper, right? With the Monmouth and Colonial efforts in the optional claiming, and then coming in here for the non-winners of 2. So what do we make of that Zap Motion race last time, a couple weeks ago, breaking on opening weekend and then stopping? Hard to say, but Luis Saez retains the mount, and that's a good sign. Usually when a horse takes a big class drop and you think, oh, no, fire sale, something's amiss. They don't like the horse. They're done with them. You'll see a change of jockey from a better pilot to a lesser rated jockey, but that Luis Saez sticks with this one and his agent, Kier McLaughlin, it's a fairly good sign. And Jonathan Thomas's horses run everywhere, it seems, around the country. So I would not be surprised at all if Zap Motion wins this race as the favorite. I'm surprised that 4 out of 5 people settled on the same horse, though. I thought this race had a little bit more competitiveness to it. The one Gold Heritage was also a maiden special weight winner. That was at Ellis back in the career debut last summer. Comes out of a third in a similar race at Churchill, where the winner actress run off by 5. So that's usually a pretty good effort when you're behind a runaway winner like that. Best of the rest. And, Gold Heritage now down on the rail. We'll try to close up the inside. Joe Talamo with a rail closer or two has had a couple good rides this meet in similar form. 90s Country out to the outside. Fausto Gutierrez has this one, another maiden special weight winner from Ellis Park. Gutierrez claimed him in July at Churchill. Hasn't done a whole lot in the 2 races since the claim, but hasn't been embarrassing either. I guess this is just one of those races where it's, the best of what's there on paper. Towing the 8, or towing, I should say, hasn't run since October of last year at Mountaineer. I mean, it's hard to take a horse like that off that kind of break and from Mountaineer. So, I guess we all kind of defaulted into the same thing. Zap Motion was fast in that allowance race. Go to the lead, improve your position, and move on from there. I'm not super confident that this is the way it's going to turn out, but it's much like races 1 and 2, where I'm on shorter price horses that look like, okay, well, these are just going to turn out this way. They seem to be slightly best, but the prices aren't great. So again, that really emphasizes why race 3 is so important to me. I want to get that 12-1 and some of those other prices in race number 3, because I'm surrounded by shorter prices early in the card that I'm not super confident in. Let's take a look at the big picture as we move to race number 5 on the program. And as I mentioned in my key play of the day, number 2 is within the swing races, I'm more confident in the 5th race than the 4th. 5th race on the card is an allowance turf sprint, first level. And when you talk turf sprint at Keeneland, you talk Wesley Ward. Wesley Ward's won 30 plus of these turf sprints at Keeneland, and no other trainers won more than, say, 6, I believe. Rusty Arnold might be up to 7 now. It's his division, and it's Wesley Ward's races to win. He's got American Starlet in here, who finished 2nd in a similar race in the spring meet, led all the way and was just nailed at the wire. American Starlet's going to the front, and you got to catch Wesley Ward to beat Wesley Ward. Gabby, Scott, and I all on the 8 in here. If somebody's going to beat this horse, I think it'll be from off the pace. Laugh and Play is, a horse I think who's going to chase and be in the mix. But I don't think fast enough to get in front of American Starlet. And I think these two might just run 1-2 all the way around the track. Quarria Comet is the closer to watch. Quarria Comet rallied last time to win at Kentucky Downs. That's kind of the upset mindset if it's going to happen in this race. I'm going to take the speed to go 1-2. But if you want a closer in here, go with the 7. So if you wanted to go too deep, this is an interesting thing to bring up. When you're playing multi-race wagers, and the difference between 1 deep and 2 deep in a race, doubles the cost of your ticket. So you had better really like the other horse or not trust the one you're with to go too deep. But when you do go too deep, I think the best scenario is when you have a front runner and a closer. Taking 2 horses with the same running style that could both run into the same problem. 2 front runners could run into a pace that's too fast, and it cancels them both out. 2 closers could walk into a pace that's too slow, traffic trouble, nobody gets through, nobody can rally because the pace was slow, and they both get canceled out for the same reason. If you're going to be too deep, go too deep with a front runner and a closer. So if you do go too deep in race number 5, while I think Laugh and Play and American Starlet are both really good speed horses for this spot, I wouldn't take both speed horses. I would take the 8 American Starlet as the speed, and then I would use Quarria Comet from off the pace so that you have that front and rally style both teamed up when you go too deep on a ticket. I think that's your best way for coverage. But I really like American Starlet. I don't think they're catching her in here. Twirling Candies run really well over this turf course, and I'm looking forward to American Starlet taking race number 5. And as far as the multi-race wagers go, I've got a single, what I think is a single in the swing race in race number 5. So that's the Last leg of the early pick 5. It's the last leg of the early pick 4, which is races 2 through 5. It's the second leg of the late pick 5, which starts in race 4. And race number 5 is also the first leg of the late pick 4. So having a single in there, I feel pretty good about it in race number 5. Let's go to the 6th on the card as we rock on through this 8-race program for Wednesday at Keeneland. Again, first post time is at 1 o'clock. Expect fast conditions, sunny, 55 degrees in the forecast. Back to the main track in race number 6, and this is one where this is just a straight-up trainer angle here in race number 6, and the horse looks talented on top of it. 6th race, I've got Cyclone Mischief on top. So does Gabby. So does Kim Nelson. Cyclone Mischief, second and third picks for Tom and Scott. Dale Romans, with his 2-year-old going long at Keeneland, has an excellent record here in the fall meet. This is what he does best. Romans isn't the 20-25% trainer of some of the others in the training colony. His percentages are even down from what his top standards were a couple of years ago. But where he is best is just like this with Cyclone Mischief. And this horse is Buy Into Mischief, and we said has already sired 6 winners at the meet, 4 on the main track. Cyclone Mischief coming off a really good debut, 3rd at Churchill. Ran a 1-turn mile at Churchill, now goes a mile on the 16th at Keeneland. You've heard it on this podcast where I've talked about it. Those horses have a lot of success. They're fast enough to be in the race in 1-turn miles. And when they go 2 turns here at a mile on the 16th, that 16th pole finish line really kind of makes it a pseudo 2-turn race for them. They get the 2 full turns, but when they turn from home, all they got to do is survive to the wire. So I think Cyclone Mischief looks really good in this spot in race number 6. It's a trainer angle. It's a pedigree angle. It's the mile to the mile on the 16th. And the horse has good form. So you're not just fishing for angles. You've got a horse whose form, if you like Beyer speed figures, the 69 Beyers right up there amongst the very tops in this race. I think only the 8 Presider has run a 70. So like it all checks. All the boxes check that I think we're going to have a pretty solid opinion here on Cyclone Mischief. Not listed amongst my key plays of the day, obviously, because he's 9-5 in the morning line. And so I think this is one where you just accept the favorite. Now, underneath, we can get a little fun here, though. If Cyclone Mischief is the horse in here, the 7 King Doro is 15-1 in the morning line that I've got picked second. And the 4 Permafrost is the horse I wanted to bet last weekend on the turf, but was on the also eligible list and didn't draw into the race. They go back to the dirt here, but this horse has a beautiful dam side pedigree. I think Permafrost can be interesting in here. So Cyclone Mischief, I think, is a standout winner, but the 4 and the 7 underneath, I think you want to get exactas, 6-4, 6-7. Then you want to use the 4 and the 7, third probably in the trifectas if you get a price in between them. So 6 all with 4-7 will be a good way to also play the trifecta in here. But 2 nice prices underneath what I think is a standout favorite. I would single the 6 Permafrost in the multi-race wagers, but I would use those long shots, 4 and 7 in the second and third slots in race number 6 to try to get a little intra-race bingo. You know, some of these races I don't feel great about the horse on top, much less I like the horse on top, and I've got some prices underneath. So race number 6 is one you probably want to get involved in the exotics and, you know, in drawing up the key plays sheet that probably, you know, probably should have made that more of a priority to discuss the exactas and the tries in race number 6. But consider that key play 3A, if you will, 6th race on the card. 7th on the program, this is the feature allowance race, and it's the return of the Commonwealth Stakes winner Prevalence. Major stakes winner here in the spring meet back in April. Won the Commonwealth over long-range Toddy, Obesos. This is a classy race. This is a stakes caliber allowance race that we see at Keeneland from time to time. 6.5 furlongs here. I think it's a really good comeback spot for Prevalence. Has been off since May. Working bullets in the morning. Now, the one hesitation is Brendan Walsh's barn is in struggle city. I mean, they can't find the victory right now at the meet. But I think Prevalence matched up against this allowance field with an affinity for the track, with the workouts. I think he fires fresh here. You don't have to be too fit to go 6.5 furlongs, so fitness not going to be the issue. I think Prevalence gets Brendan Walsh off the Ziggy for the meet and gets him their first victory. If it's not him, then things open up a bit. South Bend has run well here in the past at Keeneland with 2 victories for Bill Mott. Late runner with South Bend, so see how the track's playing. I mean, if speed's carrying most of the day, then a horse like South Bend's going to be in big trouble going 6.5. Hear My Song's another one from off the pace. So, Shadowlot's probably going to go to the front here for Asmussen. Hollis is going to show speed in here. Doc Amster's going to show speed. I think there's enough speed to come back. And at 6.5, that's just enough probably to invite, the stalkers and closers into the mix. But Prevalence should be the horse to beat in race number 7. Use him on top with the closers. South Bend, Hear My Song, second, third. Let's see what the other handicappers have here in the allowance feature. Is it Prevalence straight across? Well, the first 3, Scott, Tom, and I. The guys are on the Prevalence wagon. The ladies, as for them, it's Gabby with Hollis and Kim with South Bend. No real argument with those other horses. Hollis is a horse who, they bounced him around. They tried some turf sprints. He generally runs a little bit shorter races. I'm not sure about 6.5, but if you're going to win with Hollis going 6.5, he's going to be lone speed. I think that's his way of winning a race like this. If it's going to happen for him, he's got a good aggressive jockey in Gerardo Corrales aboard him, who hasn't ridden him in the past, but he's a jock who likes to go to the front, and there is no speed out of the 1 and 2. So obviously Hollis goes to the front here under Corrales. To the inside, goes to the rail, I should say. Whether or not he gets to the front or not, Chattelot may have something to say with that, as will Doc Amster. But Hollis is going to break and go to the fence and give himself every chance. If the others back off, then maybe Hollis can upset this field wire to wire. But if you like Hollis, you are projecting to get away, I think, with a little bit of a pace theft. Let's go to the final race on the card. Race number 8 is a turf sprint, second division. What we saw in race number 5 earlier in the program, races 5 and 8 were our 2 turf races on this card, both for fillies, sprinting, first level allowance conditions. Opening buzz, top pick for Scott, myself, Gabby. And then you've got Tom Leach going with Top Gun Girl and Shannon. And Kim Nelson has Shannon on top as well. Opening buzz, the pick in here for me. And this is a horse, or I should say, opening gun is, you know what? My top pick in here is really Top Gun Girl. I've got to get this fixed. And sometimes we do live podcasting and we see things that that we didn't input right. I did not put this into the computer properly for Keeneland.com. So I will update this for tomorrow. So if in your selections, it's Top Gun Girl for me. The 11 is who I have on top in here. I'm with Tom Leach in this. This is another Wesley Ward. Plenty of speed, turf sprint. We know Wesley dominates the turf sprints. The outside post doesn't bother me that much with a horse with this much speed because I think you break and you break and start to come over. Top Gun Girl's 4-1 in the morning line. I hope we get that third choice. Opening buzz is the 5-2 morning line favorite coming in from Southern California for NoCal trainer Jonathan Wong. Shannon's 3-1 in the morning line for trainer Brad Cox. So you've got some interesting horses in here who could take some money and maybe deflect some of that cash that would normally just default to Wesley Ward. But I like this horse. I think the 11 Top Gun Girl's faster than these out of the starting gate. I think if you outbreak the 2 kidding, a long shot, I think you make the front in here. The other long shot in here with the early speed is Arlene's Crown. I just think that Top Gun Girl's faster than them, and she'll break, she'll clear. And John Velasquez is riding really, really well. So it's the 11. Again, disregard there, and sorry for that. And good thing we did this the night before. I can get that fixed here after we log off the podcast. But the 11, Top Gun Girl, my top pick, third choice in the morning line in the final race number 8 on the card. That's going to wrap up the preview for tonight. The Keeneland Look Ahead. Again, Wednesday's first post is at 1 o'clock. A lot of great racing coming later in the week. We've got stakes action coming up on Saturday with the Lexus Raven Run Stakes. I believe we got the Bewitched later in the weekend, too, for the Turf Marathoners. We'll get the draw tomorrow for Wednesday for the Saturday cards, and we'll know more about those. I got to get to work on the Friday card now, as Wednesday still hasn't gone, but we've got Thursday looked at for now in our preliminary handicapping. We'll touch up a little bit more on the Thursday handicapping tomorrow and have it all set for you on the Keeneland Look Ahead podcast tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, on Wednesday night when we look ahead to Thursday. On behalf of everybody, Horse Player Now, and Keeneland, I'm Jermaine Plonk. Have a great night. Good luck tomorrow. First Post 105.